Today we will be talking about the cross cultural communication. So I'll just share my screen so that you can. I have a very simple PPT, but some basic things are there. So I I hope you people can see my screen. Yep.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
All right. So I'll just move to the PPT. Uh, yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The first slide on cross cultural communication. See, I am unable to see the screen now. I can see only my PPT. So if you have something to ask, you can just stop me and ask. It is completely fine. Uh, Today, in cross cultural communication, I am today's session is primarily about the idea of language and how this language and different linguistic varieties are used by the people across the cultures, societies, and communities that I will be discussing. And in our tomorrow's session, I will be concentrating on the cultural aspects and the practices that people do, and we create the meaning out of those practices. Right. So I've divided into one part completely devoted to language, another part completely devoted to culture. But in the discussion of both these aspects, I'll be talking about certain cross cultural issues, or which is better known as intercultural communication. So, what is cross cultural communication? If I tell you that we are all multilinguals, we all speak more than one language, and in fact almost all of us speak more than two languages. We needed to learn second or third or fourth language because we needed to communicate with the people of some other culture, or we needed to understand the information or literature or some other messages encoded in some other languages. So, consciously or unconsciously, we are always in the process of cross cultural communication. And let me en- enlarge this very notion of cross cultural communication, that when a group of males are talking, they will talk in a very specific way, and a group of females are talking, they will also talk in a different way. So there is a different culture practiced when it comes to what we call cross gender communication. There is a very interesting book written by, I don't remember the author right now, but the book's title is You Just Don't Understand, and the subtitle says Men and Women in Communication, where the author, based on the empirical evidence, concludes that when the males are talking, they normally see communication as a kind of competition, and they normally uh, involve themselves into communication in terms of one upmanship, that it should be the last word should come from me kind of attitude is seen. While on the other hand, if the females are talking, then they look into the aspects of communication more from the notion of cooperation. They don't see it as a competition. Okay. If I'm not wrong, the name of the author is Deborah Tannen. So, cross cultural communication is a field of study which looks at how people from different cultural backgrounds communicate. Like someone is from Gujarat and someone is not from Gujarat. So if there is any difference when they communicate, even if they are communicating in a common language, let's say Hindi, then apart from language, what differentiates them? Okay. So the practices of communication are also very important. The rules and regulations of communication, which are different from the rules and regulations of language or the grammar. So this is where we look at the notion of cultural background. So in similar and different ways among themselves and how they endeavor to communicate across cultures. Because majority of the issues we face because of the failure of communication. There is a statement that every war is a proof that communication has failed us. There is a failure in communication, and that's why there was some war. And majority of these wars are intercultural or across the communities or across the nations, across the states. So there has to be certain issues which are directly associated with the cultural aspects of a given community. And those cultural aspects may become barrier when we are communicating or trying to communicate with the other culture. So here we can identify two basic and pivotal uh, what we call concepts. One is communication and second is culture. So in this specific presentation I will be presenting more on communication, talking more about various aspects of communication, and in next presentation tomorrow I will concentrate primarily on culture. So to define communication, it's a very simple term. We all know what is communication. Communication is a process between two or more speakers that involves feedback, verification of messages, mutual understanding, and corroboration of intent. So there is the involvement of language, and apart from language there is an involvement of intent. Uh, how do we understand what the other person is saying? How we respond to that message? What is the process of verifying that message? How do we understand the other person? And how do we come to a common ground when we are into the communication? So all those aspects, though not directly associated with the language, these aspects are something that is directly associated with the notion of communication. So communication is primarily something more than language and rules of grammar. I will ask you a very simple question just to think that if we considered communication as uh, the rules of grammar and vocabulary, then by, let's say, memorizing the Wren and Martin and Oxford Dictionary, will you be able to communicate effectively? Just two
So I
things.
think no.
Sorry?
I
Yes,
think
sir.
no, because illiterate people will be unable to communicate with each other
Yeah.
because they will unable to know about grammars and all.
Mhm. So grammar is not something that's written in Wren and Martin. Okay. Grammar is something that's there in our mind. Okay. We have the entire hypothesis of universal grammar proposed by Noam Chomsky. Of course, there are issues with the idea of universal grammar, but the basic idea is we communicate not by learning those rules. We we develop rules by communicating in a particular way. Again, I give you an example. Suppose you know three languages and Your friend knows another three languages. You know, let's say English, Gujarati, and Hindi, three languages. And your friend knows, let's say, French, Tamil, and Telugu, another three languages. You don't have any common language to communicate. Okay, normally, we believe that communication is possible only when we have a common language. But if you really want to communicate with the other person and the other person wants to communicate with you, you will find out a way to communicate with each other. Though you don't have any common language, you will find out some code or some common grounds where you can understand each other. So, knowledge of language is secondary. The intent to communicate becomes primary. In the similar situation, you know three languages, your friend or enemy knows three languages. You know common languages. You know Gujarati, Hindi, English. Your friend or enemy knows Gujarati, Hindi, English, but you do not want to communicate with each other. So, all the rules of the grammar, the entire vocabulary that you have is useless because that intent to communicate is not there. So, communication is something that is beyond the idea of language. In fact, language is just a code that we exploit to communicate with the others. And that's why today this idea of cross cultural communication or intercultural communication has become possible because we want to talk to other cultures, we want to know about them, we want to work with them. And that's why we are worried that if we are in communication with other culture, we don't make mistake, we don't do something that will probably harm the image or face of the other culture. Fine. So basically communication involves two parts. One is content and second is intention. In the process of communication, what is said is the content, but why is it said is the intention. And if as a communicator we fail to understand one of this, we will fail to understand the entire message. I'll give you one very interesting example, a real life example that was discussed in a book called Pragmatics, where there was a case, court case is going on. There were two accused. One is a juvenile boy, like he was not adult, and the other person was an adult. Now they were accused of murder. There was no confusion that who has committed the murder. The young boy, underage boy, juvenile boy, has actually shot the revolver and he committed the murder. The discussion is on something else. When this thing happened, this adult person who was also the companion of this boy had the gun in his hand and he was holding the gun in front of a police officer. And at that time, this adult said that let him have it. I repeat the statement, let him have it. And after hearing this statement, the boy shot and the officer died. Now, the actual discussion in the courtroom is what were the intention behind these words, let him have it? Because the person who spoke it, he said that I wanted to convey that let the officer have the gun. You give the gun to the officer, while the boy is saying that no, he told me to fire. Let him have it. Let him have the what we call bullet. Okay. There is no problem in the understanding of this simple statement. The problem comes, and the what we call reinterpretation of the statement comes when you think about the intention. Why is it said? Okay. The person was actually asking to surrender, while that intention, that statement, was seen as a self defense, that you fire the bullet and save yourself. Ultimately, the court decided that the juvenile boy was correct, and the person who spoke was behind the bars. He was given the punishment. So, even when we are talking in our first language, there are a lot of changes, lot of differences in terms of accent, in terms of varieties, in terms of the vocabulary that we use, and there also we find the cultural differences. So in our first language or second language, we normally do not face much problem if we are using it daily basis, on a regular basis, and when we are using it with the people whom we meet on a regular basis, there we don't find much of the problem because we know each other pretty well, so we can understand the person and his or her intentions quite easily. But when we are interpreting what we call language or a message, apart from language we also have body language, paralinguistic features. I will explain this term later. Indirect messages, and we also need to understand the participants. So with whom we regularly communicate, we don't have a problem. I When I talk to my Italian friends or Australian friends, because I know them pretty well, they know me pretty well, so we don't have any problem in communication. But if I'm talking to some other Italian whom I don't know personally, or some other Australian whom I don't know personally, I might face issues. So this is where we have to be considerate about the idea of culture and the differences in the practices. See, normally what happens, that our culture is collective culture. That is, we think of us as a community, and that's why majority of our decisions are based on the idea of what we call larger good. Everyone gets some benefit. While majority of the Western cultures are individualistic cultures, and there if you think about yourself, nobody will feel bad or offended. Like here, if a boy decides that I don't want to live with my parents and I will live alone, okay, it is a big issue in our society. But in, let's say, American society, if a boy decides that I will not live with my parents, it's completely fine. In fact, it is expected that the children after a certain age don't live with their family. Okay. So that is the individualism. So that will also interfere when we communicate with other people, and that will also be reflected in the language. Say for example, I'll give you a very simple example right now, which we'll discuss later. In how many names for, let's say, uncle we have in Gujarati or Hindi, and how many words for uncle we have in English. We will discuss this later. You just think. So, when we communicate, the first thing we need to worry about is the language. Okay. We say that we normally use the language that is understood by the interlocutors, by the participants with whom we communicate. But what is a language? So the basic idea, the code that is accepted by the community for the sake of various types of interactions is called a language. We give different names for the given code. We might call it English, we might call it Hindi, we might call it Gujarati. See, I normally give these three names because I know these three languages quite well. Okay. So please don't feel offended. So we might give that particular code name, for example, Tamil or Telugu or Japanese or Thai. Okay. But primarily, it is a code within a community that the community members understand easily, and they use that code to interact with each other. Okay. So the next question that we should be asking is, if you know this code, if you say that I know English language, or if you say that I know French language, or if you say that I know Arabic language, then what do you know when you know that language? So normally we talk about five levels. Normally, this is not the exhaustive list. There are few more things. Okay. So we talk about sounds and structure. We talk about word formation processes and vocabulary, new words added in the dictionary, and we should know certain number of words so that we can communicate effectively. We should know the sentence structure, how to form a correct sentence in the given language. We should know the ability to interpret the linguistic meaning, the words, the sentences that we are using. What does it mean in the given language, and how does it create that meaning? And ability to interpret the contextual meaning. Certain words, if you use in a specific context, it will change its meaning. I'll give you the examples for that. So we normally talk about these five basic things. All of them have their own science. Okay. In linguistics, sounds and structure is studied under phonetics and phonology. Word formation and vocabulary is studied under morphology. Sentence structure is studied under syntax. And ability to interpret the linguistic meaning is studied under semantics. And the last one, ability to interpret the contextual meaning, is studied under pragmatics. So let's go to all these levels one by one. We start with the smallest level, sound structure. Different languages have different sound inventory. That is, the sounds we have may not be available in the language of the other person. For example, we learn English, but we never, what we call, develop the fluency in English like the native speakers. One of the primary reasons is our mother tongue has certain sounds which are not available in English language, and English language has certain sounds which are not available in our mother tongue. Okay. For example, when we say "ph" in Gujarati and Hindi, even in Marathi it is there, and most of the Indo-Aryan languages we have bilabial "ph" sound. We speak "f" in English, which is labiodental "f" sound. Bilabial "p" sound is you stop the air completely between your lips. You stop it and you open your lips with a kind of explosion. So it is called stop sound or explosive sound, bilabial. Two lips are involved. But when you speak English "f", it is labiodental. That is, you use your lower lip and upper front teeth and you speak "f" sound, like we speak "v" sound in most of the Indian languages. So that becomes labiodental. Similarly, we have a kind of dental sound, okay, in English, where you put your tip of the tongue between your teeth and air will pass through continuously. So you say th, th, like thank you. It's not thank you. We make it th, which is not available in English. So many English speakers face problem in understanding your thank you, because you're using it with aspiration. Aspiration itself is not there in English language. So that is the primary concern, that do we have the same level of phonetic inventory, do we have the same sounds. We face a lot of problems in the vowels. English has certain vowels which we don't have, and that's why when we speak those words, we change it into the words that we know, or into the kind of sounds that we can speak easily. Like in most of the Indian films, Hindi films specifically, if you find Gujarati person, then that Gujarati person will be speaking bad English. The Gujarati person will speak hole. I have a big hole in my house. They don't say I have a like I have a big hall in my house. Okay. So that kind of problems are related with the sound structures. Here, one more interesting thing, that certain sounds or certain combination of sounds are allowed in some languages but not allowed in other languages. We have a very simple example. For example, in English, we say the word like station. Okay. It's a very simple sound, a simple word, and we have adopted that word in almost all our languages. We say station. But when a Gujarati person will speak this particular word, normally Gujarati person will say station. The first s sound will be dropped. So s t cluster in the beginning of the word is not allowed in non-standard Gujarati. So that's why we drop the s sound and we simply say station. So if you are in Vadodara or Ahmedabad and you use the right word station with the rickshawala, he will not understand you. You will have to say station and they will immediately identify, ha, chalo, I'll take you. Same word, if it is spoken by, let's say, Hindi speaker, native Hindi speaker, the native Hindi speaker will say is station. So native Hindi speaker will add E sound to break the certain cluster, is station. And if you are like majority of people from Bihar and that area, they also say station. They insert, no, Punjabi people will normally say station. The Biharis will simply say a station. So they use a before sir, so a sir together and station together. Or the Punjabis, they insert a sound after sir, station. Now there is nothing wrong. The problem is their mother tongue is interfering. The kind of sound system that mother tongue has is different from the English, and that's why we will modify the English words as per our convenience. Now, if you're talking to an English person, the person will not understand what you are trying to say. Why? The problem is your sound structure, the structure that you are using to speak English. There are many such words. Okay. Like when I was in Saudi Arabia, all the Saudi people used to call me Jafid. My spelling is Javed. So Arabic people have an unwritten law that if in English it is spelled with V, they will change it to fur because they don't have V sound, ver sound in their language. Okay. And they don't have a vowel. So they will change a vowel with E. So they call me Jafid. And like over the period, initially I felt bad. Oh, you are speaking my name wrong. But then once I realized that this is the normal process for them. Okay. So then I understood that it is not their problem. They are actually saying Javed in their mind. But their language is not allowing them to speak Javed. That's why they are speaking Jafid. So we had what we call Jordanian and these Iraqi students here in Gujarat. So they don't have per sound. They will convert per with b. So we were taking them to Pavagad, and they don't know how to pronounce Pavagad. So they were asking the people that where is Babagad, and people don't know what is Babagad. Okay. So these are very small issues, but it will change the meaning of the words that you are using. So mispronouncing, what we are doing, we are mispronouncing the words because of the sound system of our language, or many times we mishear those words because we don't have certain sounds, so we adjust what they are speaking to what we know. So there is mishearing also involved, and it may create misunderstanding. The remedy is speak slowly and check if other person can comprehend it easily. Okay. So when you are a good speaker, you also have to look for the feedback. You ask them, did you understand what I say? Can you please repeat? Okay. Can you please explain me? So you try and find out the ways through which you can make sense of what the other person has understood, and always consider the capacity of your interlocutor with whom you are communicating. For example, when we communicate with the children, we automatically simplify our language. We know that this is a child, the child may not understand everything that we know or we speak, so we use simple language. When you are talking to a foreigner, especially in your culture, if foreigners are here, you take them as a child and you explain things them in a very simple words. The good thing is majority of the foreigners, they learn basics of the language and then they enter here. I know plenty of Americans and Australians who are very fluent in Gujarati. So if you look at them, uh, you will never understand that they can speak Gujarati, okay, or Hindi for that matter. Second point in language is word formation and vocabulary. Different languages have different ways of forming new words. Okay. So there are different processes involved. Like in India, for example, we have a very common way of forming new words, what we call compounding. We put two words together. We call it samas in Gujarati, Hindi, and Sanskrit. We put two words together and we create another word. Okay. Now, those who have studied your language as a second or third language, they understand this process, but they understand it at a very basic level. So, for example, we have a samas like, let's say, var vadhu in Hindi. So, we normally interpret this samas as var and vadhu, bride and groom, and there is no problem. So, someone who has studied basic, what we call Hindi, will understand this. But then, if you use the word like var ghodo, which is a very common word in Gujarati. Okay. Now, if someone knows var vadhu and interprets that way, that person doesn't have the understanding of the Indian culture and Indian marriage tradition. The person will interpret as the bride and horse. Sorry, the groom and horse, which is not the right interpretation, because this is called Madhyam Pad Lopi Samas, which is not available in English. English has only two types, endocentric and exocentric. So they understand the process, but they may not understand how we interpret that process. Okay. So, for example, I give you one very interesting example. In English, we have a word like baby, B A B Y. What do we mean by this word, baby? Have
We
you
mean a
Infant.
child, a small child,
small child?
below 1 year old.
Below, very young child, where see specifically when we do not want to what we call specify the gender of the child, we use the word baby. And if you want to specify with baby, you will say baby boy and baby girl. So the listener will understand whether that child is male or female child. Now, we Gujarati people borrowed this word in Gujarati language. Now, what is interesting is in English, baby word is gender neutral word. There is no gender marking in terms of its meaning, in terms of natural gender. Okay. So you can use it for both male and female. But when it is borrowed into Gujarati, Gujarati has a very fixed system that if the word ends with E, majority of the words that ends with E will be categorized as feminine. So baby, when it is borrowed into Gujarati, it automatically goes into the category of feminine. So it is used only for female child. So then you need a word for male child. Gujaratis are very creative people.
Babo.
Babo,
Yeah,
yes,
baby and Babo.
Babo. Okay, so we created altogether a new word based on a borrowed word. Okay, which has a completely different meaning in its actual context, in actual culture. But when it is borrowed into Gujarati, now you require one more name, baby and Babo. Baby for girl, Babo for boy. So you come with the O suffix that is primarily marked for the masculine gender. Okay. And that happens with most of the words that we borrow from other languages. So that is also a process that how we create new words. Now, someone who is new to the language or someone who is not very efficient in the language, these people may not understand the new words that you are creating in your actual communication, or they may not understand the difficult words, the long words which are there in our vocabulary, but they are basics. Okay. So not two communicators have equal level of competence in terms of vocabulary. If I compare myself with someone else, okay, I probably know less words than the other person, even if it is about my mother tongue. Forget about the second language. There is no what we call common competence. People are different. So there is this possibility that if you are using some word and those words are misinterpreted, or those words are not understood at all. So this is the problem we are facing at the level of language, especially when one or both of us are not the native speakers of the language. Like if you're talking to Japanese, you are an Indian, Gujarati, or Hindi person. That person is Japanese, so your mother tongue is Hindi. His or her mother tongue is Japanese, and you are trying to communicate in the English language, which is neither your mother tongue nor his or her mother tongue. Then there will be a lot of issues related with vocabulary. So the problems we normally face here is the possibility of malapropism. Malapropism is a very typical kind of problem which people do in second language specifically, that they want to use language to impress others, and in that process they use wrong words, but it is high sounding big word, and that's why they are using. There was a character in a drama called Mrs. Malaprop who used to do this, and that's why this specific kind of mistake is known as malapropism. And second possibility is deriving wrong words or assigning wrong suffixes. Now, when you say deriving words, you create new words, you use affixes to mark present tense or past tense or future tense, or singular or plural, or feminine gender or masculine gender. So if you don't know how to do it correctly, or if you are a foreigner and you have picked up that language, you probably don't know the right word or right rule, and that's why you create a problem. For example, my Manipuri student used to ask, when they ask me about the other faculty member, they say, Ajay sir aa gaya kya? Okay. So we know, because we have studied Hindi language, we know that it should be Ajay sir aa gaye kya, because your verb should have, as what we call, connection. The verb will modify for the subject. Okay. And your subject is Ajay sir, someone who is elder to us. In our case, Hindi, Gujarati, when we are talking about elders, we use the verb with reverence marker. Okay. So we say "आ गए क्या," because that person is, we give respect to that person, and that's why we say "आ गए," not "आ गया." We use "gaya" for someone who is smaller than us or younger than us. So this is a very small mistake, and because we were into this field of language and linguistics, we understood that this is the problem these people are facing because of their culture. Okay. If the person doesn't understand it, the person may feel offended. So I ask you this question, that how many words for uncles we have in, let's say, Hindi. We begin with Hindi. How many types of uncles we have in Hindi language? Any native speakers of Hindi language?
Like there is Kaka, Mama.
Yeah, there is
That's Bengali. In
Mama.
Hindi, we will say chacha mama,
Chacha,
Oh
Mama,
yes, Chacha.
and then we can say chacha mama, pupa,
Fufa, yes, and
pupa, and there's one more. Chacha mama, pupa.
Mosa.
Tau.
Thank
Mausa.
you.
Tauji.
So Tau is elder brother of your father, right?
Yes. Mm.
Right. So that is, there is yet another term for uncle.
Yes.
Now, someone said maternal uncle and paternal uncle. This is not there in English. This is what we people do for our convenience. Okay. Uh, for Bengalis, how many uncles we have? There was someone Bengali.
Yeah, this is Bengali.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can.
Kaka is there, Mama is there, Mesho is
Kaka,
there,
Mama.
Ishu
Mesho
is
is
there.
what?
Mesho is Mosaji,
Mosaji. Okay. And how about Fufa?
and it is Pishu or Pisha.
Pisha. Okay, Pisha. Fine. Now, have you ever thought that why we have four different types of uncles, but in English you have only one name for all types of uncles? Okay. So here comes this notion of culture. Here comes the notion of the practices. What kind of practices we have in our society. So when we differentiate kaka and mama, or chacha and mama, the primary distinction we are creating is that chacha or kaka or tau is someone who lives with us in our house, because we normally live in a united family. So we are all one family. So even if we are not living together, we still consider we are one family. While mama is someone who does not live with us. And that's why you also have proverbs like mama nu ghar ketle, मामा का घर कितना दूर है, then you answer that divo bade etle, that is, you can, where you can see the light, there is the mama's house. There is social obligation associated with this name. In Indian marriages, okay, there is a particular role assigned to mama, and only mama can do it. What is that?
Kanyadan.
Mamiru.
Mameru, yes. कन्यादान कौन करता है?
In certain
Kanya.
countries, Mama sir.
In certain
Father.
cultures, it is done by mama. In certain cultures, it is done by father or elder brother.
Yes, correct.
Hmm. So, but Mameru is something that is done only by Mama. Nobody else can do it. Now, this is the social role assigned to Mama and connected with the word Mama. Similarly, when you talk about aunties, we have Fufi, Bua, we have Foi in Gujarati. So they also have a very specific social role that the process of baptism is done by Buaji. When the child takes birth, the name is given to the child by Bua. That is again a social role. Another important thing, we need to differentiate different types of what we call social relations, maternal, paternal, and those different social relations are important for us culturally, socially, and in every forms of celebrations. Okay. तो शादी में किसको बुलाना है, तो वहाँ लिस्ट बनेगा कि लड़के की मामा की फैमिली, या उनको बुलाना है या नहीं, चाचा की फैमिली को बुलाना नहीं है क्योंकि वो तो ऑलरेडी फैमिली है, मौसी को बुलाना है या नहीं. सो दीज आर दी social norms where we required certain linguistic signs to identify them. Okay. And this is where culture enters into the process of language. Okay. And that's why we say that there is no language possible without the culture. Now, if you go to the, let's say, British or American culture, what is the social role of uncle in their culture? Do we know? Do they have any specific role? Let's say, for example, in their marriage ceremony, you don't specifically require anyone. You just need bride, groom, and the priest who will conduct the ceremony. Apart from these three, whom you invite as a bride or as a groom, that's up to you. None of these people have any social obligation for the marriage. So there is no need to differentiate the paternal uncle from the maternal uncle or paternal auntie from the maternal auntie. So that's why they don't have separate words for it. But wherever these things are socially significant, you have words. In Arabic culture, you have words. In Japanese culture, you have words. Okay. So wherever they are African culture, they have words. Okay. So how we can avoid these kind of problems? So first of all, we have to use a very simple language, especially in terms of pronouncing certain words which are difficult or which we think are difficult for other people to understand. We need to speak slowly so that the other person can understand it in a simple way. And if there is anything that we don't understand, it is our moral duty to ask what does that particular word or phrase mean. Okay. And I'm offering very simple kind of solution because we are probably uh, meeting people from other cultures in academic, primarily academic or professional context. And if we are in such a context, then the other person is also aware that there is a cultural barrier, and people may not understand everything that you trying to communicate, so they will also be simpler, and they will also try to explain themselves in a better way. So language, the construction of the language. So different languages have different sentence structure. Like we have subject, object, verb structure, while English has subject, verb, object structure. When we use the language as a second language, we tend to mentally translate the thoughts from our first language to the second language. and hence we make a lot of structural mistakes. Okay. One interesting phenomena that I have observed around here, that when Gujarati speaker, mm, they normally use something like હું આવી રહ્યો છું, मैं आ रहा हूँ. Okay. Normally there is no such construction in Gujarati. Gujarati has simple construction, હું આવું છું, I come. And if you want to differentiate between simple present, that you regularly come, or present continuous, that you are coming right now, you will use time adverb. હું રોજ આવું છું, I come every day. Or હું હમણાં આવું છું, I'm coming, or I am coming now. But there are people now in certain areas of Gujarat, they differentiate. They say હું આવું છું, હું આવી રહ્યો છું. This kind of problem is basically the interference of second language. You have learned those rules so powerfully that now it is interfering in your mother tongue. Majority of the Gujarati and Hindi speakers, when they use uh, English as a second language, they tend to use lot of continuous tense. And the problem is this structure, that we don't normally differentiate simple present tense and present continuous tense in our language. So we extend that thing and we take everything as continuous, and we rarely use simple present tense in our communication. Another important thing is simple present tense is very easy, or continuous tense is very easy. Simple or present continuous or past continuous. So that's why we tend to adopt that tense more frequently. So problem here is wrong constructions. And if you are using wrong construction, you are making a big problem, because either your message becomes incomprehensible, or you are giving some distorted message. So we need to be really, really careful. And there are certain constructions which are available in our language but not available in the target language, in the language of your culture. Okay. For example, if I say it is raining, how do you say this thing in Hindi? It is raining.
बारिश हो
बारिश हो
रही है.
रही है.
बारिश हो
Okay.
बारिश हो रही.
बारिश हो रही है. Very good. Now, if you go back to English sentence, it is raining. What is the equivalent of हो रहा?
It's
Or if you can
contextual.
liter, sorry,
It is
just
contextual depending on the gender.
अच्छा, हो रही or हो रहा. Is there any such words or phrase available in English sentence when you say it is raining?
No.
It's gender, like
It
there is
is,
no gender phrase in English.
Gender in
there is
English.
no gender, there is no verb. जो verb आप
हाँ,
use कर रहे हो रहा,
yes.
Yeah.
happening, that verb is not used in English statement. If you literally translate this sentence of Hindi, बारिश हो रही है, you are basically saying rain is happening. Okay. Which is wrong in English. Okay. The problem we are facing here is English is non-pro drop language. That is, in English, you cannot leave out the subject of the sentence. Basically, when you say it is raining, it does not have any meaning in that sentence. This is the first problem here. It is there to occupy the subject position. Okay. It is called dummy filler in English. And rain is noun as well as verb in English language. But in Hindi, baris is just a noun. And you don't have that rule of dummy filler in Hindi, or even in Gujarati and majority of Indian languages. So you are completely changing the structure to communicate this. Okay, fine. So for example, if you have tried to translate some poem, okay, there was a very interesting song called मैंने कहा फूलों से हंसो तो वो खिलखिला के हंस दिए. You must have heard this song. Now if you want to translate this small line from Hindi into English, how will you translate it? Hmm?
And can you say the line again, please?
मैंने कहा फूलों से हंसो तो वो खिलखिला के हंस दिए.
I spoke to the flowers that they should laugh, and they bloomed with laughter.
हाँ, we are trying to maintain the sense. Basically, I asked flowers to laugh because मैंने कहा फूलों से. Okay, हंसो हंसो तो वो खिलखिला. Now we have this very interesting word खिलखिलाना. You don't have this process in English. So someone translated it as I asked the flowers to laugh and they लफा के laugh दिए. Okay. So खिलखिलाना, खिलना is literally translated as laughna. Okay. So this is not possible primarily because the kind of structures we have, kind of understanding we have, कि खिलना और हंसना दोनों को हम साथ में रख रहे हैं. तो कोई बहुत खुश दिख रहा है ना, तो हम उसे बोलते हैं एकदम खिले हुए लगते हो. वी यूज दिस मेटाफर खिलना, which is not available in the same sense in English. Culturally, we are different. Shakespeare can say that your face is like beautiful summer afternoon. तो समर आफ्टरनून प्रॉब्ली ब्रिटिश लोगों के लिए ब्यूटीफुल हो सकता है, हमारे यहाँ 40 डिग्री में वो कभी ब्यूटीफुल नहीं लगता. We have a very different conception of summer afternoon. Okay. So this is where the cultural difference, the structural difference will affect our communication process. So primarily the wrong constructions of the message, okay, which will interfere in our communication. And in this case, we need to be very specific with the construction. We should know whether I want to talk about what is happening right now or whether I'm talking about something that happens over the period or regularly. For all of them, we have different constructions for different languages. And we keep simple sentences, especially when we know that the other person is not very powerful about our culture, very well known, like well acquainted with our culture and language. We use simple sentences. Okay. Linguistic meaning. Every word comes with a meaning, and every sentence will also come with certain meaning, which is a combination of the meanings of those words. So within a community, a word can be used for multiple senses. And as a communicator, we need to understand those senses correctly. So even within the same community, like I'm a Gujarati speaker, and if I go to some area of Gujarat where they use a different variety of Gujarati, it will be very difficult for me to understand that Gujarati. So, for example, if you go to the Kutchi Gujarati, they use a word like bhunga, which is not available in what we call the standardized Gujarati. In standardized Gujarati, it is known as house, that is ghar, makan. So, same language, they are also claiming that they are speaking Gujarati, but their Gujarati is different. Here, for example, a very simple example of the greetings. If I ask you, how are you? How will you answer?
I'm good.
I'm
I'm
good.
fine.
I'm fine. Very good. Any other response?
We can also say I'm fabulous.
I'm fabulous. Okay, very good. I'm great.
I'm
I
great.
have, yeah,
I'm
I,
well.
I'm good. Well, okay, or we simply say good. Suppose if I ask you, how do you do? What will be your answer?
Very
I'm
well, thank you. And you?
Very well, thank you, and you. Anything else? How do you do?
Yeah,
I'm
we ask,
doing good.
if someone is asking us how do you do, we ask how do you do.
Yeah,
How do you do?
yeah, we simply respond with how do you do. Especially in British culture, if you answer anything else other than how do you do, then basically you are insulting your कम्युनिकेशन पार्टनर और वो अगर ब्रिटिश है तो वो दूसरी बार आपसे बात नहीं करेगा. हाउ डू यू डूज
This is
आंसर.
not true, sir. I'm sorry to tell you, this is not true. I have traveled quite a bit, and to say that he will be offended today in 2021 is incorrect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is not in 2021. It is about generalized idea because 2021 we are all multicultural. Okay, so they know that people don't understand our culture, so they will take it lightly, but they know that this is wrong, and they will also tell you that this is wrong. Okay, and like most of us, we also use something like Britisher, which is again a wrong word.
Absolutely
Yeah.
correct. I agree
See.
with you. What I would like to say is
Hmm.
that when we talk about culture, and your topic is of absolute super interest to me,
Okay.
super interest.
Thank
I
you.
have a degree in sociology. I have studied different languages. My first language is American.
All
Okay.
right. Wonderful.
And though I'm very, very thrilled to be in India, and I
Mhm.
have no intention of going anywhere else.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Gujarati is also of interest to me because my mother grew up in Bombay, and she could speak fluently in many languages, including Marathi and Gujarati.
Gujarati, because half of Bombay is almost Gujarat.
Yeah, she went to
Yeah.
a school that was a Gujarati school called New Era School.
Wonderful. We
And
have a
so
lot of new era schools in Vadodara as well.
yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
I don't want to distract you from your topic. It is exciting. But the point is that we have to be careful in making statements about what they will do to you and what they will not do to you, because people here in our group are not
Mhm.
likely to meet people who are going to correct them
Okay.
severely.
Yeah.
Severely, they won't correct them.
So basic idea here is when we talk about being a social scientist, you also know that when we say that this is how they respond, that is the generalized response. Like here, for example, in Gujarat, if you ask Kemcho, okay, in different areas of Gujarat, you find different answers. Okay, that is in Vadodara. If someone grew up in the what we call old city of Vadodara, that person will invariably answer as Santi che because they are looking at the environment in terms of riots or not riots. So that
Certainly.
is Shanti che. That is we are
Mm,
peaceful. But
certainly.
in Surat, if you ask the same question, they say Jalsa che. We are enjoying.
All is well. Yeah.
Okay. So
I would like to say one thing.
mhm.
Um, as I am probably older than you,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
when someone tells me I'm good,
Mhm.
uh, I am offended,
Yeah.
and I say at,
Good
good
at.
at what? But I also accept that with the call center culture,
Hmm.
which is now about 20 years old, this peculiar thing came from America, and if I don't know any American who says I'm good.
Hmm.
And I have many, many people in America because I studied in American school. I studied in American school in Delhi. And I recently had a reunion online.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nobody said I'm good.
All right.
So maybe it's an age factor that we don't
Yeah.
use that term.
Yes, because
So,
the punk culture has brought in a lot of new words. So I'm good also has another connotation. That is, if you ask someone, "Are you all right?" and they say, "I'm good," that is, "I'm okay."
hmm,
So that is not primarily associated with the greeting culture.
hmm,
That is the regular talk. That yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me, kind of thing. So they
hmm,
say, "I'm good," but
hmm.
that is also used by a very young, like 20, 25 of age of the people. They don't go like if you go beyond 30 right now 30, they don't normally use "I'm good" for that purpose.
Yeah, well, they want to remain young. They want to
Yeah.
appear young. Then they will
Yes.
use it. But then I also, please carry on, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so my concern
Ahmedabad
related.
would answer Majan.
Majama. In certain area,
Yes,
this
sir.
is
And
Sakkat.
yeah, Majam.
Majama, Sakkat. Rajkot people
Uh,
say this Halya Rakhe.
Moj. Moj.
Moj. That is Bhavnagari culture.
You
Okay.
not say saruche ever?
Saruche is what we call shist. That
Okay.
is
Okay.
standardized. Or
Okay.
if you are actually ill and someone is asking and you say Saruche.
That means I'm okay now.
All right. So my next related issue related with the how do you do thing is, if you are supposed to answer how do you do only, that is an answer which is a question, then why are we questioning? That should come in our mind, that why people is asking this question. So the interesting thing here is what we call fatigue communication. We'll talk about it in later part, that you basically used greeting or camcho or how are you or how do you do, not to know about the well-being of the person. You are basically doing it to initiate a communication and to maintain a communication. When you meet the person second time, third time, you simply greet. That will strengthen your relationship. So at later stage you can communicate lot many other things. But if you don't greet each other, you don't start that basic thing, that question, good morning or good afternoon or camcho or how are you, okay, then probably there is no possibility of developing the relationship with that person, right? So that is something very interesting when we are talking about linguistic meaning, because it is not purely dictionary meaning. There are a lot of things that's happening, and that's what we understand without being taught properly or without being directly taught about it. Through our experience, through our observations, we learn and we use them accurately. Okay, so here uh, the problem that we are facing, the words or structures may be used ambiguously. If I say I'll meet you at the bank, that bank could be anything. If I know you know me well, you will understand that what bank I am talking about. Okay, am I talking about financial institution or am I talking about the bank of the river? That is again ambiguity. Okay, and that also persists within the same culture. Okay, so senses of the words used in the given community, that plays a very important role to communicate effectively with them. Okay, and then remedy basically concentrating on context and co-text. In which context we are using it, what is the text before and after it, what were you talking before that or after that, or what is the theme of discussion. So that what we normally call co-text, so that it will help you to make sense of the words or phrases that you are using. And the background to the topic at hand becomes more important, which topic you are discussing. Okay, because many times you don't understand the communication just because you're not aware which topic they were discussing, because there are now professional what we call vocabulary. Basically we take from the simple vocabulary, but they have some professional or registral meaning. Okay, that it is used in a particular way in the given what we call field. For example, in communication theories we use word like noise. Noise, we have a very specific meaning in our day-to-day communication. When we talk about noise in communication theory, of course we are basing our understanding of noise from the basic word, but it has the technical implication. That noise can be related with the channels of communication. That noise can be related with the semantics of the language they are using. So there are different types of noises than we talk about there, and how to resolve them. So if you can identify which kind of noise is it, the resolution will be easier. So last part in language, that is contextual meaning. The words may have different meanings in different context. Okay, for example, if I say black, black is a color, but when I use that word with money, black money, it has a different connotation. Okay. And that is because the cortex, the word with which I'm using the word black, okay, has a certain specific significance, and that's why the word black is getting a different meaning in that context. So every message comes in a specific cultural context. If we don't understand the context properly, we will not understand the message. Like in Hindi, we say um, Kanya Saudhan in marriage ceremony. Now, Saudhan has a very specific meaning, but when you are using in that process of marriage, okay, it has a very different understanding. Okay. So, what kind of problem we are facing here? We may send the messages that are contextually wrong, or we don't get the message due to misunderstanding the context. Okay. For example, if you have seen a movie, let's say Gangs of Wasipur, there was one sequence in second part. Hmm. Even if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry. Uh, there is a funeral going on. Sardar Khan died, and the villagers are gathering at his home. And outside his home, they were playing the songs on band. Okay. Now in the theater, everybody was laughing there. Okay. Because we don't normally associate singing with funerals, especially in Indian culture. Certain types of singings are not allowed in the funerals. It will be a big social gaffe. Okay, you will be in trouble if you do that. Okay. Like in marriage, if you go, you will first inquire about food. But in a funeral, if you go and you inquire about the food, you are making a big mistake. Because these two situations are very different. The context is very different. And uh, everything that you had in one context may not be applicable in another context. So that cultural change, the contextual change, like there are cultures where they sing in the funerals, they call it marasims. The area that I come from, okay, they have a very significant meaning associated with the marriage ceremonies. So in an interior village, if they have a marriage, they will bring the microphone, the mic and speaker system, and they will start singing songs of marriage from like 3 to 5 days before the actual marriage, which will mean the surrounding villages will know that there is some marriage in this village at this particular house. Now, again, there is some significance that if they are singing songs, then it is a marriage of a boy, male is there. But if the girls are crying on the mic, then it means that this is a marriage of a girl. Now, they are not sending this message in a very well formed manner. Only if you're part of that culture for a longer period, then and only then you'll realize what is happening. In these areas, what we normally call the rat area, they like if there is a date in the village, they will make a like they'll shot the fire in the air so that the surrounding villages know that there is some bad news. Okay. So these are the contextual meanings that we learn over the period through experiences. So understanding of the background situations, okay, in which situation we communicate, and in the given culture, what is allowed in that situation and what is not allowed in that situation, that is very important. So like in our marriages also here in certain parts of Vadodara, if you go for that marriage ceremony, you don't find any woman in the entire what we call area, because those women are in the house. They are not allowed to come house for the ceremony, for the celebration. They have a different what we call arrangement for food and everything. Okay. So that is fine in certain cultures. So if I am from another culture and I'm going to that marriage, I will have to think that where should my wife will go, because she is not aware about the culture. I probably know, and I know some people who have invited me, they're all males. But if my wife is with me, she'll be in trouble because she can't stay with us and she doesn't know anybody in the female groups. So those background information are very important. Knowing about the cultural practices, again, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Like when we go to the funerals, majority of the cultures, those funerals are the silent situations. We are not supposed to talk. Our presence there is enough. We show our face to the family members, we don't talk. Okay. And then we leave. Once we meet the family members, probably we say, we are really sorry, we are with you, and that's all. You don't talk anything more, right? So what is allowed in that situation, what kind of colors are allowed in that situation, that is also important. In our area we use black and blue for funerals, and normally red for the marriages. So you cannot wear red in the funeral, you cannot wear the black sari in the marriage. These are certain issues that people take very seriously. Second part of communication is our body language. And body language, also known as non-verbal communication, it also plays an important role in communicating and comprehending the masses. Especially in our face-to-face communication, we don't just rely on the masses that is being sent, we also rely on the body language and non or extra linguistic features. Okay. Because it will help us to understand the message better, it will help us to understand the intention of the speakers better. The meanings associated with different bodily gestures and gaze are different in different cultures. Okay. In fact, there are cultures where you are not supposed to look into the eyes of your interlocutors, especially your interlocutors are elder to you or they are more powerful in terms of position than you. So we basically talk about four things here: eye contact, gestures, touch, and paralanguage. So first, eye contact. In some cultures, looking into the eyes are considered honesty and straightforwardness. When you look into the eyes and you talk, people think that you are speaking the truth, you are honest, and you are sending simple message, straightforward message. While in some other cultures, it may mean rudeness, or in a way you are challenging your interlocutor. Okay. So in US, for example, good eye contact mean you you are interested in person. I forgot the apostrophe. You're interested in the person, that is the good eye contact. Okay, so when you maintain good eye contact while talking to that person, that means you're interested and you want to develop relationship, you want to develop friendship with the person. In Middle East, eye contact is less appropriate, especially when it is cross gender talk. Okay. In majority of the Asian, African, and Latin American cultures, long eye contact is taken as a challenge. In fact, we are taught in our houses that you should not look at someone continuously. In Western Europe, the eye contact is considered proper to communicate, especially when you are communicating with the same age people. So here we always try to maintain neutral eye contact with our interlocutors. Okay. So it should not be threatening, it should not be discomforting either for you or for your interlocutors. In certain cultures there are rules that when you're talking to the person, you don't look at that person, but you look at something on the right side of that person. So when you are looking at my right side, I will understand that you are talking to me. Okay. And in professional communication, especially in terms of interviews, in group discussions, even in your professional presentations, eye contacts are taken very seriously, because they want to know that how will you control the gaze and attention of your interlocutor. The eyes will help you to maintain that attention level of the other person. If you're looking at them, they will be more attentive. Okay. In body language, again, uh, you have a lot of things, gestures, for example, a movement of a part of the body, especially by head or hand. That is what we call gesture, to express some idea or meaning. So here, for example, this is a very simple example. If you make this kind of hand gesture in Egypt and almost in entire Gulf area, I have been to Saudi and Dubai, and they also use this very frequently. They want to convey, be patient, listen to me carefully. So that's why they use this specific sign. In Italy, if they are making this sign, it means what do you mean? While in Greece, if you are using the same sign, it means that's just perfect. In Hindi or in Gujarati belt or in Marathi belt, what does this particular hand gesture mean? Do we use this hand gesture?
To take food.
Sorry,
To take food. Food.
to take food. Huh? Do you want to eat something? So
Yeah.
we move the hand up and down towards our
Just,
mouth. Yes. Yeah, there is one more response. What was that?
just,
Okay,
sir, just.
just okay, just this. बहुत छोटा amount है. So for that
Right.
we use this kind of hand
Sir.
gesture, right? So
Yes.
these, yeah,
Sir, it may be used for just give me a second, just for a
hi,
minute.
yeah, just give me a second, or like what Egyptians and Gulf people normally say, be patient, I'm talking to you only. Okay. So that is also conveyed in some Indian uh, communities, right? You can imagine lot of
Sir, also used for grant
for
permission.
permission. Okay. uh, in which context, I'm not, I haven't come across that particular meaning of this gesture.
Yes, yes, I have seen this.
Okay.
I talk incessantly, but when
Oh,
somebody wants to speak in between, then they give me this gesture to
Sir, when we request,
yeah, yeah, when we are requesting someone, please listen to me kind of thing. Okay. So there you use this kind of gesture, right?
right, sir,
Yeah. Yeah, there was
right.
some other, yeah, ma'am, do you want to add something to that?
no, 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 no.
All right. No, no. um, there are few more such gestures, like in UK and USA, this is okay, this uh, finger and thumb rounding finger. In Japan it means money. In Russia it means zero, while in Brazil it is an insult. Okay. So you are using the same gesture, but it has different
Sir, it,
because, yeah,
sir, in India it's also used for beautiful.
for beautiful as well, okay as well, all the best as well. Okay. So for different context, we use this and we communicate a different type of message. Similarly, thumbs up kind of sign, it is normally used positively almost everywhere, but in certain context it is like something we call thenga dikhana. So in Bangladesh, normally it is used that way negatively. Okay. So you are like, if you want to criticize or irritate someone, you use this, not to give thumbs up or all the best kind of message.
It can be all the best also like
Yeah,
this.
in our case, yes, we do use that way. Fine. So
It
like
is used in hitchhiking also.
hitchhiking, yes, true. So now, depending on which context you are using and who is your interlocutor, that plays a very important role. If your interlocutor interprets it correctly, that is your intended message, there is no problem. But there is wrong interpretation, there is big issue. See, I have a LinkedIn friend from Iran. Okay, and when we initially met, we used to communicate about our research and all. So after like 2 3 messages, she would send the kiss emoji because we are chatting on LinkedIn. So, and she is Iranian woman. Okay, and probably elder to me. Okay, and in the communication chatting, she kept on sending these kind of kissing emojis. So then I had to ask her that why do you send kissing emojis? Okay, so that this is very normal for us. When we like to talk with someone, we send kissing emojis. While in our case, we use kissing emojis when we are in intimate talk. The same emoji, but it has a different interpretation. Okay, depending on the culture, because in certain Gulf culture, they also greet each other with what we call kissing on your cheeks. Okay, especially intra-gender, like male meeting another male, they simply touch each other. They touch each other cheek. Females meeting each other, they use a different type of. So for her, the kissing emoji that she was sending was basically a kind of she likes something and she's appreciating it. It has no connection with a kind of romantic interpretation we have in India. Okay, so these things happen if I probably misunderstood it, misread it, and I think that she is interested in developing a personal relationship with me, then it's a big cultural gaffe, big issue for us. Okay,
True, very
right,
true. I would never send a kissing emoji to any male person, and not even my brother,
true.
okay, to
Yeah.
approve of something that he has done or not done, because this is
Hmm.
our culture is.
Yeah.
Whereas I would not even hesitate to send the first time I'm having a communication with a female, I
Hmm.
would say, I could send one to say that, oh, I like what you're saying. I would like to be closer to you. So
Definitely.
emojis are very complicated and I understand very few of them.
Right,
I use few of them.
we all understand very few of them. It is
And
not meant for us.
yes, I also have friends who don't use them at all.
Yes,
I
true.
think that is because, again,
Yeah,
it is an age
again,
issue.
so even these short forms, LOL and ASAP and all, they also have multiple readings. Like LOL is, some people call it lots of love and others call it laugh out loud. So same word, same what we call acronym we are using, but depending on with whom we are using, it may have a different interpretation. So we need to be really very careful using those acronyms specifically in chat language.
Sir,
Similarly, yeah.
1 minute. Sir, it is 7:35. So if tomorrow also it is your session only. So you will continue this. So
uh,
do we give
there is
chance to
there are only
interaction?
two slides left, so I can
Okay, no
complete
problem.
this, and then
Yeah,
if they
yes.
have some questions we can take up, and then we will depart.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for reminding the time.
I want to tell you, very often our sessions go on till 8:30.
Okay.
Get excited, we get interested, and we go on and on. So
Yeah,
I hope you
that's,
have that time for us.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm all here, don't worry. So touching other individuals or getting very close to other person during communication is also directly decided by the community rules. In most of the communities, going very close to the person is not advisable. Okay. If you know them, you become friends, then you can go into the closer circle. So we call it proxemics, study of space management in communication. So if you are very close to someone, you will stay very close to that person, like less than 2 feet away. Okay. Or you can physically touch that person. Okay. But if you are not close to that person is not very good friend of you, you need to maintain that difference and you must not touch the person. There are cultures where close contact is avoided, while in others it is expected and normal. For example, in Saudi Arabia, when you enter into the room, you will greet everyone who is there from right to left. You shake hand. If you are very close friend, you what we call touch your cheeks, and then you go to every person available in the room. And here, if you meet two of them and you don't meet the others, it is a big insult. So you have to greet all of them available in the room, and you have to greet all of them in the same way. Otherwise you are creating a trouble for you. Okay. This is a very very important rule for them. So I had colleagues, they knew that I am outsider, so they used to tell me that, like, if I have some work, like normally when you go to someone's office, you have some work, you talk to that person, you come back. This is what we normally do here in India. But there, even if you have work and you are there for some official purposes, but all the people who are not even connected with that work, you have to meet them. So if I don't meet them, my dean would tell me that you should talk to all of them, you should greet all of them. Okay. So I learned a lot from them. They taught me, in fact. So there are cultures where this is avoided. You simply don't have to touch. Here, the gender, age, personal relationship, that is also important. So if you're a very good friend of someone, even if that person is an outsider, foreigner, that's not an issue. Okay, fine. So when you talk about Islamic or Hindu cultures, touching with left hand is considered insulting. That is also very important. Which hand you are using to touch, or which hand you are using to pay the bill. Like, it is expected that you pay the bill with your right hand. Okay. So that is, if you don't do that, if you pay the bill with your left hand, it is insulting. In like America, it is expected that you pay, like you give the money in the hand of the other person. But in certain Mexican cultures, they keep one bowl on the table, and you put that money on in that bowl. You don't give it to the person even if that person is there. Okay. So you don't hand over it. So that is again directly associated with the idea of touch, that how you meet and what is allowed in touching across the cultures. In most of the Western cultures, hugging the person of opposite gender is quite normal. So this happened with me quite a few times, that I have a lot of Western friends who are like female friends, and when they come here to meet us, they hug us. So my wife feel really jealous about it, that why would she touch you. Okay, but that is very normal for them, because we are just friends, we are good friends, and hugging is very normal there. Okay. But here in India specifically, if you are hugging someone, that person should be a very close friend of yours, or that person should be a very close relative of yours, then it is fine. But otherwise it is an offense, and especially when the other person is not approved of it, the other person doesn't like it. And last part, the paralinguistic features, that is the kind of tone, the kind of loudness, the kind of intonation, or the tempo, the speed in which you are speaking. All of them are important across the cultures. Like in our culture, when you speak slowly, giving emphasis on each word, which means you are talking something very important, and people should pay more attention when you are slow. Fine. So that is our cultural paralinguistic practice. While there are languages which are considered tonal languages or tone languages. So if you simply change the tone, the meaning will change. Or loudness has different understanding. Like if I'm speaking something loudly, people may not like it. And people think that I am uncultured. But in certain cultures, being loud is the expression of your joy. So these things are very, very significant for the given speech community and speech situation. If we are making mistake there, we are what we call creating trouble for ourselves. Okay. So if you are maintaining long eye contact with loud voice, it means you are being rude in most of the cultures. In Arabic culture, what I've observed is whenever they are arguing, they will be softer in their voice. They will not go loud. But in Indian culture, if you are arguing, you will go louder. So this is completely different kind of understanding of the voice, loudness of voice, and how we are making use of it. Okay. So different areas of the same linguistic territories are marked with differences in paralinguistic features. Like Gujarati spoken in Vadodara and the Gujarati spoken in Rajkot are considered different Gujaratis because of the paralinguistic features of the Gujarati used in Rajkot. Okay. It is considered a very sweet Gujarati. Okay. People like to listen to it, and that's why majority of the folk singers from Gujarat, they basically come from that area of Saurashtra, right? Because their language is their tone is and their voice quality is considered sweeter than the rest of the Gujarat. Okay, well, like there is one very simple joke. It's a joke. Okay, don't take it very personally because we will have people from Lucknow and we will have people from Haryana. In both Lucknow and Haryana, we use Hindi, different types of Hindi, but we use Hindi. So there at that time, the Lucknowi person and a Haryanvi, they were traveling together in a train, and normally Haryanvis are very good physically. Okay, height, body, they are powerful. And this Haryanvi fellow is in like standing on a way, and this Lucknowi person wanted to pass through. So he spoke in a very typical Lucknowi Urdu mixed Hindi, or let's say Urdu. He says, क्या मैं आपको एक तकलीफ दे सकता हूँ? Such a polite way of speaking. Okay. The Haryanvi person looks at him and then he says, "Deke dikha." So here the difference is not in terms of language, but how you are interpreting the words that is being used. The person, the Haryanvi, is not reading it as a request, but as a challenge. So that is the difference of understanding of the language and the statement in terms of culture. Right? So I think that's enough for today. I wait for your questions. I'll just end my slide sharing so that we can have face to face interaction.
So really two interesting class.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That brings me to a very interesting thing, that the word "to" we use "to" it actually means in the case that this is too expensive, This is
Yes.
too cold, it's too hot.
Yeah.
I'm a very horrible person in this group because I know English in a different way, because English is my first language. It is not my native language, but it is my first language. I
Mhm.
don't know what my native language is, and there's too many influences in my life. But this too business, couldn't we say it in a different way? I'm sure somebody here can say this. Huh?
Mm.
This was so interesting. Huh?
Okay.
It was amazingly interesting.
Okay.
You know, there's so many words that we use carelessly, and I'm not trying to subtract from your presentation from to us. It was amazingly, fabulously awesome. This is the language that young people use. I don't
Mhm.
like the word amazing and awesome for that reason. So I
Okay.
use other words. Magnificent.
Uh, Thank you so much, ma'am. In terms of two, like you made a statement that I'm reframing the same statement. I'm too young for this group.
Yes, totally correct.
Right? So, that's completely fine. We also learn from you.
Two is
We are
something
we are
that
all here to learn. Actually, yeah,
Absolutely, lifelong learner, and this group has taught me lots and lots of things
yeah. So
every day.
I'm beginning my journey from today. I hope it continues for a really long time.
You are very welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm waiting for your queries. Waiting for
Also,
your
telling something, sir.
yes.
No, no, I was just saying, two is something that has become part of our culture. Just like if I say this lecture was terribly interesting, South
Okay.
Indians would relate to that. Terribly, it could generate fear, but it could also mean very much.
Yeah.
Two, then our senior batches tend to pass out. So all these things are fine with us, and we always confuse between terrific and terrible. So
Terrible. Yeah.
I think this too is beautiful. I mean, it is a part of culture, and I would ask a question also related to this. But first, I
Yes,
would like
please.
to specially thank you for this amazing lecture. Though we
Thank you
are
so
only
much.
19 or 20 people left, that doesn't mean that that is the real audience, because this lecture will be recorded and it will be made available on YouTube, and many people will be watching and learning a lot of things, because this is probably the best expert that you could get to speak on this topic. And if you are still not happy, then you cannot get anything more. That is what I would really think, because the way
No,
he
no.
told,
See, see. I want to interfere here.
humility
I
is
have
welcome,
problem with.
sir.
I have two problems in the statement that you have made. There are two words: based and expert. I'm neither based nor expert. I'm also learner. We are all learners, and this
And
is a process of learning.
that is expressly what I want to say. Such a humble person. Uh, we rarely get such soft-spoken people, and it was so pleasant on the ear. Listening to you was so pleasant on the ear, and we never felt bored. The subtle
Yeah.
sense of humor and the way, the examples were all drawn from life, and I'm sure that one or the other example struck a chord with someone attending this session. So it was truly insightful, and I
Thank you.
enjoyed
Thank
every
you so
bit of
much.
it. Now, I have a question, and the question is regarding body language. You were
Yeah.
giving lot of examples. Now, if I am a beginner or if I am a student, I am.
Yeah.
So, what should I give importance to? Culture or my individual? Let us put it in T.S. Eliot's phrase: tradition or individual talent. What should I give
Yeah.
importance to when it comes to body language?
Yeah. So basically, when you say communication, any form of communication, it must be something that is accepted by the entire community. So if you are trying to develop a new kind of sign, let's say, then you have to begin with a smaller group of, let's say you have 5 friends, and you start using among your like that small group. And By observing you, other people will start accepting those signs. That happens with the words as well. That once one or two people will start using those words, and then people pick them up. So normally when you want to begin to like enter into a new culture, try and observe people how they behave, because observation is the best thing that, like, the best learning you can do is through observation. Okay? And if you are not a good observer, you can never be a good learner. So by reading, by listening, we learn things, but by observing we know how to implement that learning in real practice. So we begin with the observations. In this case, like, majority of the Americans, or Australians or British people, when they enter into India, they will learn the basics, that at least they can communicate with the basic people. They learn basic Hindi at least, so that there is some communication that they can do on their own. And in that process, when they are making that small communication, you basically, the person who is entering in your culture, they observe you and they learn from you. So how you are behaving, that will affect. Okay. So I have a friend, an Australian. He is right now in Japan. He was living in here in Navsari, in Fulbright. So, and we met for the first time in Cambodia. And the moment he came to know that I'm Gujarati, the first thing he spoke is Kamcho. So that is not just a statement, actually. That is a kind of identity marker, that you can see me that I'm Australian, but I understand Gujarati and we will talk in Gujarati. So that becomes an identity marker. And that's why we are very good friends, that he started talking to me in Gujarati. I met 100 other people in Cambodia, but they are not my friends. This person is, because he used a strategy that, what we call, connected us, and we are still connected. Okay. So even in body language, we will have to begin with something that connects with the other person, even if it is something different, something that they don't know, and you might probably need to explain. But again, before you try something new, you should be aware whether it will be taken positively or negatively in the other culture. Because we don't know everything about that culture. And probably you are making a sign which is taboo in that culture. Okay. So you are bringing lifetime animosity because of a simple sign. Okay. So we need to be really careful. So if you want to, like, improve, so it like, improve in terms of new bodily signs, like we say in Gujarati, for example, or even in Hindi, when we say kal milna, we will always say kal. We will never say kal milna. Why we don't say this? If, even probably in Tamil, Telugu, you will be doing the same, kal. So there is this cognitive base behind this, that our body is our presence. So when you say kal, you are signifying something that is out of your presence. You are using proxemics. Kal. Ha. Abhi aa jao. We want to say abhi aa jao, we'll say abhi aa jao. Okay. We are talking on phone. The person can't see us, but still we will say abhi aa jao. So we are using a symbol where we are trying to bring an object from outside towards us, towards our proxemics. Okay. So these are very small things, but it becomes our habit. We don't even realize that we are practicing it. Okay. But people who are outsider, who are not aware that this is our normal practice, they observe everything. So they will check whether it is used positively or negatively, whether it is used, what we call, in a way of gratitude or appraisal, or it is used as a kind of insulting someone. So that's what we have to be careful about when we are talking about cross cultural communication.
Yeah, it is very difficult to know what is right and wrong in certain situations. And
There
I
is
just
nothing
want to,
there is nothing right and wrong.
you know, but it can be breaking relationships, make or break
Yes.
relationships. I just wanted to give one example. Both are correct in a certain way. One is about proxemics and one is
Mm.
about eye contact. So
Eye
two
contact.
people were dating, and the boy is
Mm.
from Kerala and the girl is from North India, and
North India.
they were connected on phone or whatever social media, and they are meeting for the first time, and their
Mm.
meeting lasted only 45 minutes, and that was their first and last meeting. What happened
Mm.
was, they went to a hotel, good hotel, and they were sitting, and the girl took the seat first. The boy, of course, gave the girl the right to choose the seat, and
Mm.
he made her sit comfortably, and then the boy took the seat opposite. Now the idea in the boy's mind was, I can look into her eyes and speak.
Eyes, huh?
And the girl was totally offended because for her proximity was important, and he should have sat beside her, and
Side.
she tried to communicate. Their whole discussion during that meeting was about this idea, and they met
Mm.
last. This is a real incident that happened with two people. So
Yeah.
here, what is right and what is wrong again, and for a left-handed person to know that left hand is wrong is painful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's see again, it is a belief system from which all these things comes. So there is nothing right and wrong, but there is something called appropriate and inappropriate in the given situation, and that is decided by the individual who is part of that situation. I give you similar such example in my own class. uh, there was a Marathi girl from Vadodara, and there was a Jordanian boy. They were attending my class, and they, like, the Jordanian boy made a comment on the girl. He said she's a lion. Now, normally, even in Jordan and in Arabic culture, lion is a term used as a compliment. Okay. And we also say that. Okay. But this girl got offended. Okay. Now, we normally associate the very idea of lion with what we call power, with courage, someone who is like a king,
Hmm.
valor. So that is our idea, and that is our normal interpretation of lion. General interpretation. Lion is used for as a metaphor as well. So we people use sea with the names. We have the entire series of movies Singham based on lion, the concept of lion. But this girl,
Aggression.
uh, no, she said, "How dare you compare with me with an animal?" So it is just an animal for her. So this is now, if you talk about generalized idea and interpretation of the word lion, it is always positive. But this individual is misinterpreting it. There are possibilities. Why? Probably she doesn't want to talk to him. Probably there is a huge cultural difference, and that's why she doesn't want to maintain good communication with him, or she doesn't simply want to accept the what we call compliment from this specific boy. So that's why she did not accept it, and she fought, literally fought, in front of all of us with this boy. Okay, and he had to apologize.
That proves that she is lion, no?
The boy had to apologize. We don't know whether someone is what we call liar or not. Yeah, but she is a lion in a different sense. Okay. So in the example that you are giving, that is also a possibility that there is something beyond that specific communication. Because in the first meeting, especially when it is a meeting for the romantic purposes, the first meeting normally should be face to face, that you can read each other's face, you can look into the eyes, and you can check whether the person is lying or being authentic with you. The eyes are the best option. So probably the boy's concept is more of romantic nature, and that's why he took the seat in front of the women, while the girl's approach is more physical, that she needed to have physical proximity, she needed to touch the boy. And this difference in the what we call expectation from the communicative event, the problem is not the communication or the proxemics, the problem is the expectation. What do you expect? So if we understand the expectation, the goal, in ethnography we use the word goal of communication or outcome of the communication. So if we understand that goal or outcome in advance, our process of communication will become much more easier. So that is one important thing when we are meeting someone. We need to know why we are meeting. Okay. What is your expectation? What is other person's expectation? You probably communicate on email or text, and then you meet. Okay. So see, there is no final answers as long as there is communication. We create and we learn the rules of communication by breaking those rules. Fortunately, we are lucky enough that we don't have to break all the rules. We can observe others, we can see what communication mistakes they are doing, and from them we learn. Otherwise we will have to make all the mistakes on our own. But fortunately we can observe and we can do likewise. But communication is again something that is ongoing process. Okay, like we cannot say that any language is the complete language or the perfect language. There is no perfect language, because as long as the language is being used by the people, the language will change. Okay. And as long as language is changing, the language will be considered a living language. The moment language becomes stigmatized, stops changing, it will be considered a dead language. So there are communication rules which are probably dead communication rules, that we don't use them anymore, but that rules are changing and they will keep on changing. So we can't expect, we can go to the level of neutrality. There's something that does not offend others. That's the thumb rule we need to follow. Yeah, I went very long.
Thank you, sir, for such a detailed and
Yeah.
beautiful explanation.
We are very happy with the amount of detail you're giving us. Where could we have found this? For us,
Mhm.
this is fabulous.
Okay, even I don't know where have I found it.
No, because I happen to do about this. I used to follow this mentalist series,
Yeah.
and in criminology, he was talking about how do they find whether this person is negative, or like whether he's a criminal, or does he is he hiding something behind. So I just
Hmm.
could strike a slight code over this, a code, similar code is like when you're very open and very honest,
Hmm.
you mirror your body language kind of mirrors the person opposite.
Persons. Hmm.
So that is a basic thing that they also check out. So if you are having, you're keeping your hand like this and the
Hmm.
listener is also keeping, that means then they are in par on the same, striking the same rhythm. But
See.
if that particular person is having, something, he is rigid, his body language is rigid, and he,
Yeah.
whatever the other person body languages changes, he remains rigid. That means he's hiding
There is
something.
something that he has to hide.
Yes, so this
Yeah, or
is
he is
on very,
playing.
yeah, and what you said on very many different layers, it is very true.
Yes.
So I never thought that that would be helpful in communication, in non-verbal communication also. So that is brilliant. Thank you so much, sir. It
Th-
makes perfect sense.
Thank you. There is a field called um there is a specific branch of linguistics that studies the linguistic behavior of the criminals. Okay, so they check how they speak, what kind of poses they take, where they break the sentences, and they also study their written language, that what kind of orthography or what kind of structures they use, and based on that they try to identify whether the given crime is committed by X person or whether the person is really a criminal or not. Okay, so that's a well established branch of knowledge in America. In India, I doubt any university is teaching this field. Okay, one of my super senior was doing PhD in that field. So her name is Arti Naidu. She is settled in America itself. So there is very little hope that we get that branch here soon.
Hope all the criminals will enroll in the course.
Yeah. See, we pretend for two purposes. Like we want to make others fool, or we want to hide something. So how you are using the rules, it depends on you.
Maybe to
So that,
please someone also. We also
sorry.
tend to we also tend to pretend to please someone also.
Yeah, so that is pretending we want to please them or we want to hide something from them. So there we have to know the rules even if we want to do positively or negatively. In any case, we have to learn those rules. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sir, may I ask something? Actually, I was thinking, this question was there in my mind, and I was thinking that I will ask to Manu sir. Okay, then when I rethought about this question, then I realized that I could ask to you as well.
Okay.
Then today I found both of you here, so I will ask this question, and you both can give the answer. So my question is about abusives.
Abusive words.
Role of abusive in every language,
Hmm.
because in all languages it is there. But being sophisticated, we don't use it publicly.
Hmm.
And in some in the culture, it is like men they use that when there is no female around, and sometimes it depends on the situation, or it depends on culture as well. So in my home also we talk about this, because my father is very, he's open minded, and we talk about this abusives. Today only I was talking to him, and I told him that we were talking about some abusives in Gujarati, and I said that Papa, it is like being sophisticated, we don't use it publicly, but it is there. And yeah, yesterday we were coming back from Surendranagar, and on the bus stop, that people were there, and two ladies, they were talking about something, and my father was just overhearing, and both ladies were talking very sweetly, and in their talk there were so many abusives, but no anger, nothing. They were sweetly smiling and giving abuse. So my father was today. He was telling all this incident to us, and I was telling him that Papa, it is not like women cannot use this, and they use it definitely. Even I am your daughter. I also use it, but I don't give it publicly, to everyone. So why it is like this, or what is the concept of this? That I just want some ideas about that.
Manu sir will be a better option for that.
No, sir, you have to
No, no,
speak
you.
because it is the linguistic side she is asking, and I am not an expert at all.
Uh, I am presently working on abusives of Gujarat. Okay. With my uh, what we call a very good, very close friend. So right now we have come to a conclusion. Our initial hypothesis is we have three categories of abuses in Gujarati language. One is based on the names of the animals. Second is based on the what we call taboo words primarily associated with the feminine genitals. And third is associated with again taboo but the idea of fornication. So all three of them are used in almost all varieties of Gujarati, even in Sist Gujarati. Chandrakant Bakshi, a very famous writer from Gujarat, he was imprisoned for a short story that he wrote. The title of that short story was Kutti. In 1989, he was imprisoned for that short story because Kutti is considered the abusive word then. Today, we use this word कुत्ती कुत्ता एज अ काइंड ऑफ इन ग्रुप बिहेवियर. आपका बहुत अच्छा दोस्त है तो आप उसको गाली दे के बात करो. And that makes sense that you are so close that you can speak any word to each other. So abusive words are not just about what we call uh, using these words to vent out your angers. You are using this word to show your power, especially when Indian males use feminine abusive words in their houses and their societies. Okay. They basically try to show that I am more powerful than you. Any fight you take up, okay, they talk about their personal power, but they are talking about the other person's wife or mother or sister. Okay. So there you are using abusive words as a kind of power negotiation. Another possibility is, like as I said, you create or a kind of language among yourself where abusive words are in group significance. And if you are using those words, you are part of our group. If you don't use those words, you are out of this group. Okay. So this is like in Surat, for example, Surti people are known for these kind of abusive words. So if you use good Gujarati, you make five sentence without any abusive word, they'll ask you, you are not Surti? Because they know that if you are Surti, you can't speak like this. Okay. So your identity is associated with it. Okay. Then we also use some abusive words based on what we call the mythological characters. Like especially in Muslim families, you have very common abusive word Satan. Okay. So that is used for children because they are mischievous. So Satan is used uh, taking from certain sense, and you want to give certain meaning to that. Uh,
Yes,
hmm?
शैतान की खाला, शैतान के
शैतान की
नाना.
शैतान के नाना मरदूत. So mardud is also used. That is again coming from the mythological tradition. So like we don't use Ravan as abusive word. Okay. Because there is some other consideration when you are talking about Ravan. Or we never use Kansh as abusive word. But Satan, Mardut is used in many varieties, even of Gujarat, as a kind of abusive word. We say Rakshas in
Yes,
Gujarati
yes,
or Danav in a
yes.
sophisticated. uh, अगर गाली देनी है आपको, then you will say this Rakshas or Danav. So
लखनवी शैली में गानी गाली देनी है.
हाँ हाँ, when you are formal in, like you don't give gali, you present gali. Okay. So
No,
in
but
that.
I think the what you said about power is absolutely true. I would have shared the sociological root of things like sister-in-law and brother-in-law and father-in-law, but I'm not
Hmm.
going to. I
Fine.
The reason is simply that it's not appropriate for me to use these words and explain
Use
what they
this word.
actually mean. And I think most people will be able to understand what the power is when I say you are my uh, wife's sister. So,
Hmm.
or my wife's brother. So
True.
that is a different thing. But another thing about the sophistication part, Sneha, is that we don't want to express power. The more sophisticated we are, the more we want to say that we don't need to express power to express our ideas. We don't need to,
Hmm.
and we actually, I would say, we don't need to lower ourselves to use bad language to
Hmm.
express ourselves. I
So
can
it's
use, I'm very quick in making a correction. I hope nobody takes offense. I am
yeah.
sorry for being so emphatic, but uh, I am coming from a place of love. I want to see people rise. I want to
Hmm.
see people, because this is effective communication, I want people to understand the kinds of words they are using that have different meanings in different places. So
True.
where I didn't have to shout, or I didn't have to use an abusive word. You always make the same mistake. You're this. This is not necessary. The
True.
power is only from the space I'm coming from is love. It is a
Love.
positive space, and people use abuses also very positively with a lot of love, but that is a different space of language, which I don't know. I never heard any abuses. My
Hmm.
father, when he had to drive and was frustrated with driving, he used to leave most of it to my mama. So he would say idiot. So
Huh.
idiot was the strongest word he ever used in my presence. And I don't think in my absence also he used anything stronger. My husband was very well equipped with good, what we say, Shuddh Hindi, but not in my presence ever. So
Okay.
this is a deference that we give to men and women. This is the sophistication that we look for.
Look
And
for.
I'm not sure that it is really a great thing, but we don't need to express power by using abusive language. We can be abusive in other ways.
Yes. No, there is one more aspect here when you use abusive word to express your power, that you have to use abusive word because you are powerless. So this is where that
Exactly.
language enters, because
Yes.
you are powerless, you can't do anything, and that's why you are shouting, you are using these
Yes.
words.
Yes. Anger is an expression of helplessness.
Helplessness. So that, and the small little aspect that people use abusive words without being angry is, apart from in group communication, it also gives you mental relief. You can remove your frustrations. So there is a very interesting book, probably I might have it here on desktop because I'm reading about it. uh, I might give you the title. uh, Swearing is good for you, that is the title. Swearing is good for you, the amazing science of bad language, and it is by Emma Byrne. So she talks about the psychology of abusive words, that why we
Sir,
use it.
sir, can you send this PDF to us so that we can give to our participants in the
Yeah,
group?
no problem. So where should I share it? Should I
To me
mail it to you?
personally, no
All
problem.
right. Yeah, I
Of
can mail
course,
it to you.
you have to share it with an introduction. Otherwise, people will take it
Introduction.
introduction or a
Yes.
preface or an apology.
Yeah.
Uh,
About the PPT.
no, 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 sir. About the book. If you are sharing the book on expletives,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. In which context you are sending that
So I'll
reference?
I'll share it with Sneha. She will take care of the introduction part and the background part.
But that is
I
good.
was telling Sneha that she should give an introduction,
Yeah, yeah,
and
definitely.
of course contextualize the book in the group.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, we will see many people leaving the group immediately, and many people
Or
Yeah.
joining the
probably
group
new kind of
immediately.
people joining the group.
And next, yeah, next onwards, we will have lot of emails on IFEST email ID that what kind of course is this?
But by
No,
the
but
way,
isn't it
Sneha,
interesting?
it was very interesting, and I love abusives. I find it
I know
I
that.
find them very fascinating, and
Yeah, and
most often I find people telling me these abusives with a lot of love, and I can easily recognize my childhood friend when he addresses me with an expletive, definite expletive, an abusive. And when he calls me by name, there is a lot of distance. I feel a lot of distance.
yeah, and
I have a name, and he used to call that whenever we used to meet. So when he is not that close with me, or when we are not talking for a long time, then he will call me Manu, and I will feel like he is calling me an abusive. And when he calls me an abusive, I feel like he is calling me a soft, sweet name.
yeah,
And his
and one more
abusives
thing
are
I want.
context specific, so we should never take it out of context. And I
Yeah,
always believe that people should be more friendly and affectionate and understanding towards abusives. Many more often we find politicians, especially because of, there is this thing called correctness and appropriateness attached to this abusives. And once in a while anybody will say something, and then it is blown out of proportion and it becomes a big issue. And it is, we everybody knows that it is inappropriate to blame somebody for using an abusive. But nowadays what has happened is racial abuse has replaced this kind of abuse, so-called sexual abusives. And I was, I remember an incident even now. It happened many years ago, the Monkey Gate scandal between India and Australia, a cricket series, when
Yes,
Harbhajan
yes.
Singh called Andrew Simons. Of course, he is from the particular race or something, and it was reported that Harbhajan Singh called him monkey, and because he belonged to some race, it was wrong to call him monkey, and that would mean that Harbhajan Singh would be punished. He would be docked his matchy, and 2 3 matches he cannot play, lot of things. And during the hearing, it was Sachin Tendulkar who was the witness, because he was the person who was batting with Harbhajan Singh at that time. And Sachin Tendulkar said that he didn't say monkey, but he said marquee, and that is an Indian word. In Indian, of course, you know what the remaining part is. So and you know what? Because of Tendulkar's statement like this, and after analyzing everything about marquee and monkey, the ICC exonerated Harbhajan Singh, saying that he didn't use any abusive. Now the question
True.
is, what is bad, monkey or
Yeah.
I know, there
Like,
is
what
this,
is worse?
what is worse?
See, you reminded me of a very interesting story by Harisankar Persai, which says, "Eat out, sleep out, walk out." So Harisankar, like in that story, it is about the Indian Parliament. So the opposition was um, asking for the resignation of the this what we call Vyavahar Mantri, uh, Transport Minister. So they were asking for the resignation of Transport Minister. What was the reason? That the state governed bus, um, what we call, crushed a dog. So and dog died in that accident. So they say that on that particular reason, the transport minister must resign from his position. Then what proof you have that the dog died? So they came with a picture and the what we call wheel, which is like it is the blood of the dog was on the wheel. So they show that, see this wheel, the dog is crushed under this, so that we will go to the laboratory, we check what blood is this, is it real blood or not. And later on the report comes and it says that this blood is not of dog but it's of a human. So transport minister said in parliament that no dog died under our bus, it was just a human, so I will not resign. Okay. So same thing happened with Baji.
and on this
I can imagine
incident,
my mind when he's telling it in Hindi. कोई
Yeah, it was Hindi.
तो था नहीं
uh, on this particular incident on this Harpachan and all. At that time, my father was it was in headlines and all. So
Hmm.
my father was like, see what kind of poor abusives they had. He is calling only monkey. He is calling only jungly cars. What kind of why they are not using very good abusives? Then later
Yes.
on, this clarification came, and my father was like, now I'm proud of this Harbhajan. See, he is using very good
Uh,
abusives.
he's real Indian.
He is real Indian. So my father
जब
was like,
गाली देना हो तो दो जोर से बजा के दे दो.
Uh,
I,
civilized abuser ऐसा.
I
yeah,
think I think because Simmons is a tribal and
yeah,
has a
Human
darker skin and
skin.
flatter features,
Hmm.
the word it is something from his history. What he's been
True.
likened to a monkey before, so he finds the word monkey not nice.
Yeah.
For I was always accused of being schnozola because I have a large nose, and now
Okay.
schnozola is an Italian word, but
Hmm.
people I
Rhinoceros.
was with were immigrants, so they could use the word schnozola. It also had a mafia tint, but
Hmm.
I was a very little girl, but it hurt. Schnozola. I mean,
True.
Now I take it as a pride when anyone calls me. My brother used to tell, we are going on a trip to this an elephant ride, and from like Munnar, and we are about to ride. Okay, and it's going to be a very good ride, and all parents are excited. My brother stops me. You are not going to sit on that elephant because that's against the law of nature. An elephant sitting on an elephant. You don't. But I take it as a fun. These days, when I call my best of best friends, we start off with dog, and and I think there is another categorization in Malayalam. I think there's also kind of some kind of weird relations that they called. Um, Gosh, where did we start this session from communication to abuse?
but abuse is part of communication.
yeah,
We started at Lion, Nina. They were on a date and the boy
Amazing.
called the girl a lion. See where we've landed.
yeah.
Kya
So
shuru
funny.
tha, khatam.
At least we didn't start. Rebecca, we
today's
didn't
session is
start with
closed.
law and
If somebody is
Wisdom
writing a
is
report or today's meeting, the report would go something like, finally the meeting ended with abusives.
Good abusive words.
No, I'm just thinking about this couple who have gone to date. Probably this girl is such a millennial that she went in for a hug, and this guy must have been in the 60s. Maybe he was expecting her to come and fall on his feet and say "Meri Swami Ji" or whatever. I mean, which world are you guys in for real?
अरे उसने तो आंखों आंखों मिला के ये तो
Sindoor
छू लो
laga do
छू लो
baba
छू
and
लो.
all that nonsense.
See when this I have observed that when Manu sir also say something where there is yes, and is what we call, I don't know the correct word, but that is aankho,
तेरी
aankho,
आंखों.
aank.
आंखों.
Hmm.
आंखों का दीवाना kind of thing. So like that basically comes from that romantic tradition. Hmm. So, and this is like the normal idea. Lot of ghazals are on eyes because
Yeah.
That
basically
couple
in
needs
that
a course in
culture.
advanced skills communication. Then
Sorry.
they will. No, if that couple had attended the advanced skills communication, गाली देके they would have married.
Sir,
Yeah, they had a different future by now.
Fortunately, they
but
talk
our
about.
future has been improved what is the word exponentially because we've been able to speak with you and hear you.
Yeah,
So
I think yeah, I think it is. This station is one of the very good stations of this course up to
Yeah.
now.
And
All
Smita,
right.
so what was it?
next
Thank you.
next year when you conduct the course, have a session exclusively on expletives, and that will be a proud moment. That will be a really
That's
proud
true.
moment.
That's true. That and those recordings will have very high viewership on our YouTube channel.
So, but
Become,
before that,
like
I'll have to apply for the security. We are still living in India.
That's true. That's true.
And
Right.
and
So,
YouTube will not allow it to be on
Yeah. So
No,
YouTube
no.
is again another issue.
Everybody, you come to Bhopal, and I will somehow make arrangements for all of you, and we will have.
We have nice abusive session.
In the Godfather book, na, which is which actually part of my reading in my class 12, the Godfather. So you can imagine that they have this thing called about mats. They're going to war, meaning they're going to use flats as their fortresses, and they set down mats. So I've got now 3 rooms. I used to have 1 room, now I've got 3. We'll put down the mats and we'll all be together. Like it used to be barats. Now people have separate rooms and keys and everything. But I remember the barats where there was a huge place taken up, and we just spread out, the little bit of separation of women and men. But who went to sleep? Everybody talked all night and danced all day. We'll have something like that.
Definitely.
And
So from
interestingly,
cross cultural communication, we have shifted to cross cultural abusive words. Well,
Achha,
Which
I
still
want to
is
ask one question.
communication only. Effective
yeah,
communication.
it's a communication definitely.
Effective abusive communication.
I have a question. I was recently put down very strictly because I saw all of us saw a clip of people who are part of one of the Muslim sects, and they were dancing to, they were actually not dancing, they were just moving in a circle and saying something about Yali. Okay.
Okay.
And a whole bunch of people said, this is the end of Islam. So my response was that Islam cannot be ended, number one. And dance is primeval. Dance is a communication forever, from Baba Adam ke zamane se ab tak, and all different communities do dance. In Arabia also, which is
Yes.
supposed to be the epitome of Islam today, which I don't agree with, but they dance, the men dance, and the idea in dance is that it should not be, it should not stimulate uh, uh, thoughts that are not good.
True.
So if we are dancing because we are celebrating Ali, I think
Yeah.
it's totally fine.
So
And men and women were separate. There were only old men and there were only young men doing the activity. So I was scolded, and of course I just retreated because I don't like to debate. Either you follow me or you don't. My way or the highway story with me. But the fact is, because I have a degree in sociology very, very long ago, like 200 years ago, it is a fact that dance is primeval, and
true.
and song is primeval. And
True.
as you said, I'm a Shia, and we do say. Yesterday, I went to a funeral, and as the body was leaving, we were doing matam, and we were
Yeah,
reciting.
marasims are there.
Yes,
True.
yes. That,
So
oh, see,
even
mother is going. You
huh,
know. So this is a very normal thing. How do you express sorrow?
yourself. Hmm.
So sorrow can be through music or song, not music.
Songs.
You know, and the all over the world there is so much use of music.
True.
You
And ma'am, on this particular concept, there is one movie, Rudali, is there.
yes,
If you have seen, yeah,
Dimple
Rudali.
Kapadia.
Dimple Kapadia and
But
Rakhi is also there.
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah, I have seen that movie so many times. That's why I
So
remember.
even the
Actually, in the
entire
songs also we have this. There's a bunch of songs that they sing around the funeral. There will be a few women who sit closer to the person who is passed, and it's called Opari.
yes,
In
Uppari.
fact, recently there was a rap singer as well who released an album based on that. It's called Enjoy Enjami. And he talks about how his grandmother was in the Sri Lankan tea plantation and how she worked so hard. They would work in a plantation, but they didn't have enough water. And it just goes on like that about the drawbacks of the ecosystem and not being eco friendly.
it's a ballad. There are
Ballad.
ballads that
It's
they're
called
very important,
Opari.
and they're very important for literature. The
True.
whole majlis, we have
Yeah, Majlis culture.
somebody Anis and somebody this, I don't know the names also, but they made beautiful poetry about what happened in Karbala. And
Hmm.
Karbala is all about relationships. There is no relationship in the world that is not mentioned of the 10 days that are commemorated about Karbala. So
Right.
we cannot deny that human beings communicate universally
Yeah.
in very similar ways. That is why sign language works.
Hmm.
Sign language works.
So this entire what we call Sufi tradition, anywhere, Islam or Hindu Sufi tradition, or
Yes,
even
yes.
there are Christian Sufi traditions,
Hmm.
they are completely based on the concept of dance and music. Like
Yes,
they try to associate themselves with the Almighty through the medium of dance and music. So they try to establish a communication with the Almighty. So yeah,
absolutely.
dance is always there. Arabic people, they have dabka, a very specific type of dance.
Yeah.
Okay, and Arabic women. I have lived in a small village of Saudi Arabia, so I've seen women dancing there. They have a different type of dance, but they do have dance. Okay, so in the interior, what they call Badu area,
Badu area. It's Bedouin.
Bedouin, based on
Bedouin is there.
Bedouin, they call
Yeah.
it Badu.
That means peasant, basically.
Peasants.
But the way we say peasant is, if you know, like a gawar, they
Hmm.
don't know anything. The same way that Badu is used, which is incorrect,
Hmm.
because
They are basically the natives.
yeah, the fact is that the sons of the soil
Yeah.
are the sons of the soil, and
Yes.
what will we do without them?
True. So all those traditions in all these different cultures are there. They have different ways of expressing themselves. So when we are entering into that field, we have to learn at least some ways so that we can express ourselves in their way. So they associate with us. If we don't learn their ways, they will remain detached, and we will never become part of their life, their culture, or their family. So this is where understanding the what we call cross cultural language use becomes important. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else we still need to talk, like apart from abusive words?
We need to talk forever, but I think people want to go.
Yeah, Manu sir was telling something. What, sir?
Yeah.
You were
Yes, yes.
telling something.
Did I? No, no, I'm happy because there are a lot of abusives also. I'm not listening.
Yeah, and one more incident I remember. I'm sorry, I will not take much time. But when Manu sir came here, means in Gujarat, and we met. At that time when he was like he wanted to say some abusives, but in front of me he will not do that. So what he used to do, he used to speak Malayalam abusives. So what I cannot understand. And I said this to my father that Manu is doing that, and my father said, "That's good. No, you will learn some Malayalam abusives also, my daughter." So I said that no, but he learned some Gujarati abusives, but I could not learn any Malayalam.
No, the only thing she taught me was lucha, luchi.
Yeah, only Lucha is nothing.
Sneha
No,
ma'am,
but
we'll have a
this
separate
is the
session.
best way.
I think we got our money's worth for this whole communication one club just now.
Yes, yes. From this single session, we paisa
Yes,
was
we are done.
Okay,
What?
so next.
जावेद साहब बहुत बढ़िया लगा, बहुत
Okay.
ज्यादा
Thank
बढ़िया.
you
Tomorrow
so much.
onwards, everybody will be paying the next Gadu fees.
Another amount.
Good idea. Good idea.
Our Saturday activity should be based on this only.
Yeah. And being we both are Gujarati, me and Javed sir, so we have this concept paisa vasool. So
ROI, return on investment.
On a serious note,
Yeah.
actually, there were many participants. I know Rebecca, Nikita, I mean, even Ashish, they were not able to tell their stories, which was due on
Ah, yes.
Saturday. I guess there would be only time. Please don't take it in the sense that we are not appreciating your stories. We just didn't have time. We couldn't stop with the abuses. It was flowing
Yeah,
on.
and no, Manu sir told me this that session, the activity is still remaining. So I told him that we will continue this on next Saturday
Next
because
Saturday. So then
every
we'll
day we
inform
have to
others.
take it,
Yeah,
and
we'll
then
actually have to
yeah,
inform others so that they feel that they have not been left out,
yeah.
because only according to the alphabetical order, only very few were able to. So we should inform them that please be present in the next Saturday so then they can also share their.
Yeah, you said inform others. I think that if it is going on expletives, they have to inform mothers as well. Inform
So
mothers.
now Manu sir is going Lacanian. We are moving from communication to psychoanalysis.
I
This
think
is
you
not a
can
good sign.
edit this bit in the YouTube link. This doesn't have to go online.
Nikita, where are you? Please share your beautiful thoughts.
Nikita is smiling. Nikita is smiling.
No,
Nikita, please unmute
minus
yourself.
minus won't speak here. This is
Right.
highly
Nikita, please.
censored.
Ashish, you would want to say something?
Final.
Javed sir, I wish I could join your college and be a student of yours. This is such a fabulous subject because
You don't
anthropology.
need to join the college, but you're always welcome to Vadodara. I have